Hey guys, happy June. This is the time of year in the garden where everything is just looking so different every single week. And I'm really excited to show you guys like all the things that are changing. This week at the end of the tour in our rotating segment, I'm also going to be talking about how I'm using all the produce that I am currently harvesting from this garden. It hasn't really ramped up into like full everything producing, but we do have a lot of stuff coming in that does need to be handled. As far as seedlings go, this is essentially a graveyard. I could probably try and like squeeze a few more of these plants in, but I definitely don't have room for all of them, especially these ones that are very obviously stunted. I have like 2 or 3 more that are not stunted, but again, everything is getting very full out there. I even did what I consider to be a somewhat silly thing, and I planted tomatoes away from my tomato trellis, which means that I won't be able to like stake them up very efficiently or prune them very well, and I'm probably going to lose a lot of those fruits because of that, but I will probably end up with more fruits than I would have had otherwise if I had not planted those. So at the end maybe it's a good decision, but I guess we'll have to see. So starting over here with this arch, I think last week this vine was only like up to here or so, and you can see it is already all the way up here. I'm having to like catch it and pull it back onto the trellis because now that it's hitting the curve it wants to go straight up. But we've got lots of flowers coming on, these beautiful red flowers, and let's see, none of these look like they've been pollinated yet and set fruit, but it looks like they've only been open for a few days. So this will be setting fruit very soon, and these will be my first ever runner beans in the garden. Looking at this row right next to the sidewalk, it is getting harder to see the strawberries because like they have not had time to spread out enough to start killing off this grass, which is their main purpose. So I think I will definitely have to do some more weeding in here this year before they really fill out and start kind of doing that weeding for me. We do have a few more things to look at on this row though. This turmeric, for example. I love these leaves. I love how big they are, and they just, I don't know, they look very elegant to me. We can check in on our one yellow strawberry, and it looks like I'm not gonna get, well, I might get fruit. There's one little baby on here. But definitely, given that it was transplanted this year, I wasn't really expecting to get anything off of it. It just kind of needs to get established. The tomato row is where things are really exploding. We've got baby fruits on all of the tomatoes now, and like I said last week, it will be like still a few weeks until these are harvestable. I know it looks like we are very close to harvestable fruit, and I've made that mistake in the past thinking, oh, it'll be next week, oh, it'll be the next week, but no, we're still a few multiple weeks out from ripe fruit here. These are still growing up to size, and then once they are at size they will stay green for like at least another week before they start ripening into red. I have also been working on getting seed saving started here. You can see I've got this little bag around this fruit. Because that fruit is set, I can go ahead and remove the bag, and I usually put a little twisty tie on the stem to let me know that this is one of the ones that was protected during pollination. But I've got a couple of these on almost every plant. The pole beans in this area are growing pretty fast too. You can see this one here has come all the way up to the top of this T-post, and then back there we've got one that comes all the way up above the trellis. Let's see if I can get you closer. Yeah, you can see the vine sticking up right there. This is when I usually start trying to train them along the top. It makes it very easy for me to access their beans once they start putting everything on to keep them kind of at this height. These gorgeous round tomatoes, I think, are my Heinz tomatoes. They look like the most classically tomato-like. These ones are Amish paste, and you can see this one has a twisty tie, so I know that this one I can save the seeds from and get a tomato that is true to type. These have a lot more variability in their shape than something like a Heinz will, because that's a hybrid, and heirlooms just tend to have more variation in them. But these are still going to be like beautiful, huge fruits. Sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference in the fruit shapes, but this is a good kind of side-by-side illustration. This one is, leaf. This one is San Marzano, and you can see it's got this like divot down the side that the Amish pastes don't have. These are like more fully round the whole way. And because I can notice things like that, I feel like I can get away with labeling a little bit less. But I still very routinely am like, I don't know what that one is because I haven't grown it before and it's tough to recognize. So sometimes that does get me into trouble. This second row here probably looks pretty different, especially because all the lettuces are very much going to seed. I should probably start cutting out most of them to make room for my eggplants and my peppers. My eggplant are looking so much better. I mean, look at these fat, beautiful leaves. They are not curled at all. I mean, something is chewing on them, but that's kind of just how it goes when things are living outside. I am hopeful that these will grow quite a few eggplant, but I am also like prepared for the fact that they're probably stunted from what happened to them as they were seedlings. Beautiful zinnia blooms all over the garden right now, and they're pretty much all different colors, which I really appreciate. Here's another one. This is a candy stripe yellow. This whole section right here is where I have planted my sweet peppers that I grew from seed, and these are the ones that were very yellow and sick and probably affected by that bad soil, just like the eggplant. But we've got some flowers on there, so that's looking very hopeful. I think normally I would see bigger, greener leaves on a plant like this, so there's definitely still some stunting going on, but we are probably going to get a harvest anyway, which is really nice. And right in here, I have to mention, this is technically a weed. I didn't plant this. This is wood sorrel. And I recently learned that the little pods on it are called fairy pickles, which I think is just the cutest thing. And they are really delicious. They're kind of like little lemony bursts. And this section farther down is all the hot peppers. These, I think, look much healthier than those other sweet peppers. I did cut them so that they would branch. So they took a little while to get started, but I'm starting to see flowers on these now, and they just look so green and healthy. This one in particular is my favorite. This one is called a fish pepper, and sometimes I say that and people think I'm joking, but that's actually the name of the variety. And the peppers will be like these beautiful little striped candy cane looking things. I haven't intentionally planted anything past here. Most of this is potatoes that are coming up from things that I missed last time I was harvesting, and the Brussels sprouts that are still here. I've been noticing a lot of these like mangled looking ones. Not sure what's causing that, but we do have plenty of healthy looking pods, and it'll be like another week or two before these dry out and have like viable seeds inside them. Moving on to this third row here with the trellises, we're going to start here with this cilantro plant that is making its coriander seeds. And honestly, the deader that this looks, the closer it is to having good seeds on it. So I'm not concerned at all about how yellow it is. That's super normal for this kind of thing, because the plant is putting literally all its energy into these seeds, and if it does a good job, then the rest of the plant doesn't really need to survive. So that's what we're seeing here. All these leaves are like drying up. They're unnecessary, and we are going to have some cute little coriander seeds very soon. On this first trellis, we've got noodle beans, which are actually starting to vine up. I think I mentioned last week that they would go from being this tall to like a foot taller in a week, and I think I've pretty much hit that on the nose. Some of them haven't quite started vining out yet. This one is just starting, and now they will grow like a foot a week pretty consistently, maybe 2 feet a week up the trellis, up until the point where they start putting on flowers and beans. and then they will still be growing fast, but just not quite as fast. I am also noticing more and more of my onions flopping over, which means that they are ready to harvest. So I've started pulling onions from the garden just on an as needed basis for meals. On this second trellis, I am still struggling with cucumbers. I managed to get some to sprout, and then they got completely eaten. So I am like watching like a hawk, coming out here every single day, looking for sprouts, watching for things that will eat them. And I planted even more seeds this time. Like, hopefully I can overwhelm whatever is eating them, and also try and make this a less friendly place for those types of pests to hang out. So I've been pulling the mulch farther and farther away from where I'm planting the seeds, hoping that it's something that likes to live in the mulch that is just coming over and eating them. And all I have to do is get them past the stage where they're like itty bitty. Like, once they start putting on leaves, they will grow so fast that nothing can possibly like eat them down. Well, you know, that's not fully true, but like generally normal pest pressure won't really affect them. This last section back here, you can see even more clearly all the onions flopped over. And we've got all my backup sweet peppers here, which are early compared to the other ones just because they got so stunted. This one here, I don't have a tag on it, but it is, what is that? Sweet banana? That looks like sweet banana probably. And I'm trying to do the same thing where I isolate flowers in order to get true to type seeds out of these plants. But these ones in particular, there's a good chance that they're hybrids because I did get them from the store. So even with isolating the blooms, it's hard to say if I will get a true to type pepper off of them. And the corn is like very visibly corn and not grass these days. It's looking pretty darn good. This last row is where I have planted tomatoes away from trellises. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this area, but here we have a few tomato seedlings that may or may not entirely take over this area and vine over everything and become a huge mess. But they will make food, so there's that upside. We still have all these little cosmos coming up in the walkway. You can see all the ones that are blooming right here. They are just so pretty. I mean, look at that. All of these flowers I didn't have to plant. I've put in basils and a couple more peppers around here as well. Just kind of filling in the spaces between weeds. And then whenever I do need to plant something where there's a bunch of weeds, I just yank up whatever's kind of directly in my way and then plant right there into it. Because I could go through all the work of pulling all the weeds right now, right, and have like a really clean looking bed, but if I don't plant anything there immediately, the weeds are just going to grow right back, so I might as well leave them until I actually need the space. Check out how much this onion is just like sitting on top of the soil. I remember my first time growing onions, I did not expect that they would literally like sit on top of the soil like this. I kind of thought they would be fully underground. It always looks kind of silly to me when I see them sitting out like this. The poppies back here, they're kind of a flash in the pan. They bloom and then become seed pods so fast. It's kind of hard to catch them in bloom, but they're making some really healthy looking pods, and hopefully they will self-seed again and we will get poppies every year without any work. And then finally this blueberry back here. This one I'm getting the earliest harvests from. This one started ripening the soonest, and it looks like it's doing really well in this spot, and I haven't really paid it any attention, so we love that. Ooh, look at this poppy. This one's so much lighter than all the others. Most of them are like this color. That's really neat. Maybe we'll get more of these next year too. Okay, so moving on to this whole area over here. On my pergola, I do have grapes planted. These are Suffolk variety, and they seem to be doing really good. It's not quite tall enough to start vining over to that, but we'll get there. And I have only 2 of them have actually leafed out. If we come over here to this corner, this third one still hasn't leafed out, and my hope that it was just kind of taking its time, is starting to wane. It might just be dead, but there's no harm in leaving it here. Maybe it will surprise me. I also recently bought and replanted the hardy kiwis that I had planned for here. I got the plants like months ago, and then they sat on my counter for a very long time, and I'm wondering if maybe they died in the meantime. Like, they were just like a dormant root ball, so my first thought was no, they're fine, but they never came up. And so I got 2 new ones and I planted them immediately, and hopefully we will get some hardy kiwis yet. Right now they are also dead sticks sticking out of the ground. I really wanted to review this planter for you guys like pretty soon, but now that I've noticed that I filled it with this bad soil that's been going around, I'm not going to get a really good idea of how well it works, because the soil is out here killing the seedlings before anything else can. So I need to really actually dump that out entirely, potentially scrub it, and then refill it with fresh potting soil from some other source. I recently noticed my first baby nasturtium in here for the whole year. I've really struggled to get these things to sprout, so I'm glad to see that direct sowing is maybe actually paying off. But it is unfortunately in this bed where, again, there is a little bit of a layer of that same soil in here, and that is much harder to clean out. I will probably have to just amend this soil over the next couple of years to kind of fix what this soil has done to me. You can see like this is way more yellow than the other turmerics in the area, and this plant also not looking as healthy as it did before I planted it in this soil. This plant was super healthy, and now we've got some yellowing leaves on it, and I think the greenery is just not as green as it was when I first planted it out, and all of that is super sad. The asparagus at least seem not to care, and that is nice because these are here forever at this point. This one fell over, but yeah, we keep getting new little asparaguses from here, and they look pretty green. So hopefully whatever is in the soil is something that just doesn't affect this type of plant. Meanwhile, the ube and sweet potatoes are absolutely taking off. They haven't quite started overflowing the bed yet. I mean, you can see a little bit here, but I think these are going to be like fully all the way out of the bed in just a couple of weeks. And this is going to be a very wild area of the garden. Carrots are in full bloom right now as well. All these beautiful flowers. Ants seem to like them. But pretty soon these will be carrot seeds, and then once the seeds are like mature and ready, I will probably immediately plant more carrots in this area, because I feel like that's kind of the weather letting me know when is the time to plant carrots, because the plants are going to plant their own seeds at the right time, theoretically. That's sort of the logic that I followed with my onions from seed. I had struggled with that for many years until I took that cue from nature. I was like, okay, I have some flowering onions. They just made seeds. Now that these seeds are ready and dried, I'm going to go ahead and immediately plant them, even though it's a little earlier than I would have thought, and just trust that the plant knows what it needs for its own seeds. Now, this won't necessarily work all the time, because we do tend to grow a lot of plants that are not suited to our climates. Lots of traditional vegetable gardens are full of them. So that thinking can only go so far, but I think it's a really good place to start, just by trusting the plant to know what it needs. I'm still keeping an eye on the potatoes in this bed because they are also affected by that soil, but we've got just a few curled leaves here and there. Some of the newer stuff looks all right, so I think we are going to get a pretty decent potato harvest off of these. I'm just not probably getting as much as I could have if the soil had been good from the start. Blueberries are finally ripening pretty much everywhere. These ones took a little bit longer, but these are gorgeous. These plants are the 2 that I got that I thought that I killed because I ignored them for so long in their pots that they dried up. And as you can see, they have come back and made fruit for me. That's very nice of them. And then I have 4 plants here that I've had for longer, I got them as much smaller plants, so it's taken them longer to get established. And like over time, I've thought maybe I need to take them out because they're not doing well. But each year they grow, and this is its first year actually putting on a ton of edible berries for me. So I think I might just leave them and be patient and see if they will become large bushes for me. So in addition to the hardy kiwi that I bought, everything was on sale at the store because it is like the end of the spring season. And so I got for 50% off these rhubarb starts, and they look dead AF, like no life in them, honestly. But they were only $2 each, so I planted them anyway, and we'll see if we get any rhubarb. I've never grown rhubarb before. I don't even really eat it, but I found out recently that it's one of my dad's favorites, and so they were on sale. I have a garden with some room. Might as well grow something for my dad. Strawberries are pretty much fully finished fruiting at this point. I'm gonna get a few stragglers, it looks like, but for the most part, I'm not finding any ripe strawberries in here anymore. And also, notably, you see these stems right here, all in here? This looks like deer damage to me, and that makes sense because this area isn't protected from the deer at all. But honestly, it doesn't seem to be having that much of a negative effect on the berries as a whole. I'm not really upset about it. And I do have garlic planted in this area, and I'm kind of wondering if maybe they came in, started munching a little bit, brushed up against this, or tried to munch it, and we're like, oh, maybe we don't actually want to be eating a lot in here. I do think the garlic in this area is not going to get as big as the garlic in the main garden just because it is very crowded by these strawberries. But if they're going to keep some of the pests away, then that doesn't really matter to me. I will get some garlic out of it, and I will get the pest protection. Blackberries, though, we've got a lot of those these days. Look at that. These are so sweet, and again, I love that I have a thornless variety so that I can literally like come in here and like push stuff to the side to get to the harvesting, because I'm very bad about wearing sleeves and such in the garden. I will definitely hurt myself for some fruit. I need to come through and harvest raspberries again as well. Some of these have been absolutely massive, so much so that the girl who lives in my neighborhood brought a couple of them to her grandparents, and they were like, these aren't raspberries, these are strawberries. But no, they are in fact raspberries. They're just huge. And it seems like they are not even close to done. We are about to have a second wave of raspberries, and look at this, third wave. All these little babies. So many raspberries. Like all of this. Every single branch loaded down. And that is one of the things that I have to talk to you guys about now, about how I'm actually using all that produce and preserving it, because I cannot eat all of those fresh. I would die. Alright, so we are in my kitchen, and I want to talk to you guys about how I'm like using all of this produce that's coming in. Now, as you saw, most of what is coming in is berries. I could technically be pulling lettuce still, but mostly because it's gone to seed, it's not going to taste very good. So like possible to eat, good to eat, not matching up. So I'm not harvesting any of that lettuce. I'm not able to harvest peppers or tomatoes just yet, but that will be very soon. So mostly what we're going to talk about today is berries and how I'm handling the immense volume of berries that I've got. So the first thing that happens when berries come in from the garden is they get processed and usually frozen. So for example, I have this massive bag of frozen strawberries, and as you can see, they're all missing the green tops. So what the processing looks like is bringing these in, twisting all the green tops off, and tossing everything into a frozen bag. I will separate out something like 10% of them for fresh eating if they look like really, really good. But most of them go in a freezer bag until I'm ready to use them. And from this point, I can do a ton of different things with this fruit. raspberries, blackberries, blueberries. None of them really need that extra step of processing before going in the freezer. They can just go straight into the freezer. If you wanted to rinse your fruit before you freeze it, it's totally the time to do it. I tend to not do that just because I am lazy. I will wash things if they have like obvious dirt on them, but otherwise I don't really worry about it. So now that they're in the freezer, I can use them for smoothies in small amounts. I can make jams. I could make pie fillings. All of that is just like ready to go into whatever. If I take you over here, I can show you all the jam I've made so far this year. I have up here on my shelf some, I think this is blackberry jam from last year. And then we've got a ton of strawberry jam. I made a small batch of a strawberry tequila agave jam, and I also made a small batch of raspberry lemonade jam. And both of those last two fancy recipes I got out of the Ball Book of Canning, which if you are doing any canning at all, I think that is like the book to get. It's pretty cheap on Amazon, and I actually took mine apart and put it into a binder so that I could like kind of access it more easily when I'm cooking, because the way the binding is, it was hard to get it to like open and kind of stay open. So this book is really nice. It's got all these recipes in it that are known to be safe for canning, which is very important when you're canning. And it's got a lot of instructions. I like going through here because there are things in here that I would never even think to make. So that can be really fun. I want to make this one next, actually. Strawberry chamomile. That sounds excellent. Moving on from berries, as I mentioned before, there's not really much else that I'm harvesting from the garden. Onions are like just around the corner. I have been taking like one or two to add into dinner. And you can use that just straight out of the ground like a normal onion, you know, peel off all the dirt and the skin and whatever. And so those are coming in like little by little, but in like a week or less, I think I'm gonna yank all of them and start the curing process. And if you're curious about how that goes, I'll link a video in the description where I go through all the things you need to know about harvesting onions, especially the like, what if this, what if that, because there are so many weird things that happen with onions. And I do want part of this discussion to be how I'm still using the stuff that I grew last year. You'll find a lot of it in my spice area. I've still got hot peppers. These are from 2023 that I dried and powdered for seasoning. I'm still making garlic powder from garlic that I grew last year. This is the last bit of onion powder that I've got from last year. Onion flakes for all the way from 2002 apparently. Ginger root right here from 2023. I also have a big bag of frozen ginger root still, because that won't be ready until like, I don't know, what's the month right before? September. These will be ready around September, maybe October. I mentioned coriander seed at the beginning of the video. This is what I have left from last year. I've been slowly going through that because, as you can probably tell from my spice cabinet, I make a lot of my own spice blends. So I'll get whole spices and then like toast them and grind them up together into a blend, kind of on demand, like every other month or so. I am also still using a lot of the dried herbs from last year, although not as much in this season where most of them are available fresh from the garden. Thyme is available fresh. Dill is not. Basil is. Rosemary is. I don't know if my Mexican tarragon plant is actually going to come back this year. Sage is available right now. Lemon thyme is available right now. And again, dill not available at this time of year. So most of these I've got a lot of, but I only need to use like a couple of them. And occasionally, even if like say thyme is available fresh in the garden, sometimes I'm in a rush and I would rather just pour some dried thyme into my meal. Similar to the spices, I still have a lot of dried things that I'm using for teas. This is fermented strawberry leaf that I actually made last month. This is a pretty simple process. You just take the leaves and kind of bruise them and stuff them in a jar with a paper towel for a couple of days, which sounds like it would cause them to mold, but they just ferment a tiny bit. And they end up smelling really sweet and like actual strawberries instead of like grassy leaves. It makes a very nice tea. I've still got lemongrass from last year that I haven't finished using. This is, where's the label on this? Plantain. This is one of the weeds from my yard that I harvest a lot for tea. We've got the wild violets that I also harvest from my yard for tea. And I think these last two are basils. I've got a holy basil container and a cinnamon basil container, both of which make excellent dried teas. In the pantry, I am still going through my homegrown popcorn. As you can see, compared to the last time we talked about it, I am much lower on it and will likely run out before the new stuff is ready. And you can see I have some store-bought stuff back there ready to go to fill in the gaps because your girl cannot be without popcorn. I also have beans dried from the garden. All these beans are from last year because, as you've seen, none of my beans are putting on fruits yet. And I actually won't have more dried beans until the end of the season because I like to pick everything fresh that I can. And then when I get overwhelmed, I let everything get mature and dry out and become these dried beans. And then circling back around to canning, I have 1 jar of salsa left, 1 jar of cacciatore sauce left, 1 jar of peppadew peppers left, and 3 jars of tomato sauce left. I do have a tendency to kind of go through those things very slowly because it's like, I worked so hard for this, I don't want to like waste it. And so I need to kind of move past that and just use the things that I worked so hard to have to eat. But waiting an entire year to use them is no big deal. And I think now that I see that I for sure am going to have tomatoes, which I was unsure about for a while because they looked pretty bad. Now that I know I'm going to have tomatoes, then I'm totally fine eating up the rest of my reserves because I know that I'm going to be able to replace it very soon. I just noticed these in the background and I wanted to appreciate the beautiful birthday balloons that were given to me. My birthday was like a week and a half ago now. Anyway, also behind me in the living room is this, I don't know what to call it. It is mostly aesthetic, but also functional. Like I can dry some herbs on it. I've got some dried mushrooms from last year still. I could throw these into a stock at any time. And this is the last of my garlic from last year that I can use fresh. I definitely pulled from this stash of garlic to plant out in the winter when I was doing that in November. And this is what I have left, which is about the right amount, I would say, because it's going to be about another month until I can pull and use garlic. Like I'm going to pull it soon, but I'm going to try and cure it all, and that's going to take a while. So this is enough garlic to make it through for me, plus a little extra, so I don't feel like I have to like not use as much garlic as I want, you know? And I think that is everything that I have right now that I'm like physically using from the garden that I am either processing right now or processed last year, and I'm still like going through and incorporating to meals, etc. I hope you found this really helpful. I know that when I started out gardening, I didn't have a proper plan for how I was going to use the produce that was coming in, and so a lot of it did end up getting wasted. So I really encourage you, especially if this is your first year gardening, to go ahead and make a plan for what you want to do with everything before you have it all in front of you ripe, potentially rotting as you are trying to figure out what you're going to do with all of it, whether or not that's processing it like I have, or giving it away to friends who can appreciate it. I think you'll feel a lot better about your gardening experience if you don't end up with a lot of rotted fruits that you spent so much time trying to grow. You know what I mean? Again, the Ball Book of Canning is a great resource for this. I can even link the Amazon link down below, make it easy for you to grab. And just generally try as many things as you can. Even if it turns out bad, then you will have data for next year. Like I've done a lot of things with my produce that I don't do anymore because I'm like, yeah, I don't really like that. But by trying a bunch of weird things that I've never eaten before, tried before, I have found some new things that are like absolute staples for me. A big example of this is a sauce called Ivar. It is something that was recommended to me via this channel, so thank you whoever said that to me, because this is like my obsession. This is the thing I make with eggplant in the summer. I also make baba ganoush, but they're very similar. And I make it in huge batches, and then freeze it so that I can use it all year. And it is so much so one of my favorite things that I do the same thing I do with the tomatoes. I'm like, I only have a little bit left. Maybe I should like save it. But yeah, I found one of my favorite foods by just trying a bunch of different things, failing at a bunch of different things, and like some percentage of those you will take with you, and you will have, like, especially if this is your first year, next year you're going to be doing so much better. You're going to have a plan, you're going to know what's going on, and all that produce is going to go to good use. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking your ear off and let you go look at your own garden, because I know after I watch gardening videos, I want to go immediately look at my own garden and do some stuff. So good luck to you on that, and thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. I will see you next week, and until then, I wish you happy gardening.